A crossroads of trade in the region where Jesus' preaching was concentrated, a Jewish village that was also important from a cultural and economic point of view. It is Magdala, on the shores of the Sea of Galilee, which celebrated Mary Magdalene at the end of the 8th day of Easter. Brother Francesco Patton, Custos of the Holy Land, presided over a solemn mass for the consecration of the church in the Convent of the Archangel Gabriel. It is located in Al-Mujaydel, near Nazareth, a village abandoned since 1948. The worsening living conditions of the inhabitants of Gaza and the spread of the coronavirus pandemic have led Caritas to become even more involved in helping the poor and needy in the Strip. The last fragments found in the Judah desert date back more than 2,000 years and will help to provide more information about the texts of the Bible. A reflection by Brother Francesco Patton on the Christian presence in the Holy Land and the particular role of the local faithful. A crossroads of trade in the region where Jesus' preaching was concentrated, a Jewish village that was also important from a cultural and economic point of view. It is Magdala, on the shores of Lake Tiberias, which at the end of the 8th day of Easter celebrates Mary Magdalene, a ceremony presided over by the Patriarch of Jerusalem of the Latins, His Beatitude Monsignor Pierbattista Piz-zaballa, which highlights the woman who, according to the Gospel, was the first to see the risen Lord right in her hometown. The backdrop of the modern church is the lake in Galilee where Jesus, after the resurrection, met his disciples. Every Easter is different, but at the same time it is also the same. Jesus' message is always the same, but we are the ones who change. Each time we must ask ourselves what he is telling us. To start again, first of all. I believe that this is also important for us today. We do not understand everything. The important thing is not to stay there and withdraw into ourselves, to feel sorry for ourselves, but to begin to leave, and as we go, we will understand. Excavations have brought to light the precious remains of a synagogue from the time of Jesus, which is also visited by many Israelis. A place that makes clear the link between Christianity and the Jewish world.
C'è un turismo locale.
There is a local tourism, and I must say that we are very surprised that they explicitly ask us to come and visit this place. They ask for explanations, they want to know what happened here, why we put these mosaics here, etc. It is a very interesting opportunity in terms of interreligious relations. Magdala is also one of the places from which to observe the evolution of the pilgrimage sector, in its various forms affected by the coronavirus. Here in November 2019, the religious community of the Legionnaires of Christ inaugurated a large reception facility also aimed at part of the pilgrims arriving in the Holy Land only 3 months before the pandemic.
Abbiamo riaperto per la Pasqua. Abbiamo deciso di cominciare.
We have reopened now for Easter. In these months we have decided to start broadcasting the Mass. We have made 2 virtual pilgrimages of the entire Holy Land. We have started this connection between the world and the Holy Land. I'm sure that as soon as it is possible, the pilgrims will come back, but to recover the volume of pilgrimages that we have reached in 2019, unfortunately, I think it will take years.
I toni dei pellegrinaggi a cui siamo arrivati nel 2019, purtroppo credo che ci vorranno possibilmente anni.
In an atmosphere of joy and serenity, the custody of the Holy Land consecrated after a year of restoration the church of the Convent of the Archangel Gabriel in the village of Al-Mujaydel, near Nazareth, depopulated since 1948. The Custos of the Holy Land, Brother Francesco Patton, presided over the solemn Mass concelebrated by priests in the presence of the faithful, most of whom belonged to the families of those exiled from the village. We grouted the stones of both the old monastery and the historic church. We placed the new altar of the Archangel Gabriel and also the tabernacle for the Blessed Sacrament.
أيضا هيكل خاص للقربان الأقدس داخل المزار.
The renovations also included tiling the church, refurbishing the facade, and rebuilding the electrical system. The guardian of the monastery, Brother Shalufi, is preparing this place in the middle of nature to host spiritual retreats. Brother Francesco Patton, Custos of the Holy Land, referred to the pleasant atmosphere that accompanied the celebration, recalling that Gabriel is the angel of good news. It is he who announced to the Virgin Mary that she would give birth to Jesus, adding that the celebration coincides with other good news that the angels have conveyed on the occasion of Holy Easter.
The angels bring us other good news in this time.
The angels have brought us in this time of pandemic another piece of good news that gives us hope. We all know as Christians that we can find hope when we welcome Jesus, from the Annunciation to the Resurrection. Today also marks an important feast day, that of Divine Mercy. At the end of the Mass, Brother Patton presented Sami Nassar, exiled from the village, with a medal and a certificate for his and his family's generosity towards the Church. We are originally from Al-Mujaydel. The inhabitants were exiled and moved to Nazareth. We have a special bond with this church because it stands on the only piece of Christian land left in Al-Mujaydel. There is also a Greek Orthodox church, but it has also been abandoned. In the various places that have been abandoned and no longer inhabited by Christians, such as Sepphoris or Ein Karem, we Franciscan friars are present and remain guardians and custodians of the holy places and churches, including Al-Mujaydel. It is our mission to inform the local Christian community that they can start praying again here, starting with the original inhabitants of Al-Mujaydel. This way, the church, which is the house of God, and his monastery can be repopulated and give moments of joy to everyone. After the Mass, refreshments were offered. The priests received the congratulations and greeted the faithful in a festive atmosphere. Each word has its own meaning, and the one that fits best with Caritas is benevolence.
May God protect all good people. I pray to God to be kind to them. I need support, and I pray for all those who help me. May God bless and protect them.
The coronavirus pandemic has worsened living, economic and health conditions in the Gaza Strip. Employees of the Caritas Gaza Medical Center have rolled up their sleeves and begun conducting tests and bringing supplies to patients infected with the coronavirus. About 10,000 home visits were made.
غطينا 10,000 زيارة منزلية لناس مصابين بالكوفيد-19.
We visited about 10,000 people suffering from coronavirus at home. Some were follow-up visits. Initially, they were limited to the north and the Gaza province, while today we cover almost the whole strip. Caritas alone covered more than 63% of the home visits, while the Ministry of Health and other non-governmental organizations covered the remaining 37%. Everything has been done to give as much assistance as possible.
في تنفيذ الزيارات المنزلية للمرضى المصابين بالكوفيد-19.
The Caritas Gaza Medical Center provides social and health services to the poor and marginalized, and offers, through humanitarian aid, the food supply to the most vulnerable. In addition to the medical clinic, there is a mobile clinic which covers most of the health and awareness services throughout the Gaza Strip.
أنا جيت كنت بدي أخذ علاج لزوجتي
I came here to have my wife treated, but after an initial medical examination it turned out that my blood pressure had risen significantly. This prompted the doctors, with the necessary treatment, to monitor my condition. I pray to God to protect and bless them, and thank God for everything.
بفتخر إنه في مؤسسة بتراعينا وبتشوفنا بالأخص المرضى.
I'm grateful for the presence of such an institution that takes into account our situation and takes care of diabetic patients with blood pressure problems or chronic diseases. I am a diabetic patient suffering from high blood pressure, and from time to time I take the necessary tests. I would like to thank Caritas for the service and care they have for us, especially for us elderly people. The health services provided by Caritas to patients in the Gaza Strip are a tangible sign of its venerable charity work, which draws its energy from the words of Jesus Christ, "I was sick and you visited me." During excavations carried out by the Israel Antiquities Authority in the Judean desert, new biblical fragments have come to light, which will help to provide more information about texts of the Bible.
The new fragments we have found include verses 16 and 17, chapter 8 of the book of Zechariah.
This is what you are to do. Speak truthfully, each to their neighbor. Let the judgments you make at the gates of your own town be true and calm. Dating back to the 2nd century BC, the fragments of the biblical scrolls found were not written in Hebrew, but in Greek.
The phrase "each to their neighbor" in the Hebrew version refers to reciprocity. This phrase is different in other renderings. In English, for example, it is translated as "one another."
Each to another.
Although the meaning seems to be the same, the words used are different. In some versions we find the word human, in others each.
For example, I feel the difference between the two expressions, "one another" and "each to their neighbor," which confirms to man.
But the most surprising and unexpected difference for the researchers was the phrase, "and peace in your gates." In the recently found fragments, this phrase differs from the original Hebrew version.
We know that in Bible times, the usual places for courts were at the city gates, because there was more space. In the recently found fragments, however, the phrase "in your gates" has been changed to "in your streets."
The researchers have not yet found an explanation for this difference, but they think that this small change could be due to the cultural background of the translator. Another surprising point in these new findings is the writing in ancient Hebrew of the name of God, Yahweh.
It seems to be due to the holiness of the name. In the 10 Commandments it is written, "Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain," meaning that his name must not be spoken in vain. During the period of the Second Temple, it was even forbidden to pronounce the name of God. So they began to write his name in such a way that they did not have to say it, and thus made it easier for the reader.
The process of analyzing and reading ancient texts is complex and difficult. Researchers use the multispectral photographic technique, considered the most advanced in the world, to read the fragments.
Each new fragment, no matter how small, opens up a whole world of information that we did not know before.
Archaeological excavations have also revealed rare coins dating back to the Bar Kokhba revolution, which the Jews waged against the Romans in the 2nd century AD.
The revolutionaries removed the Roman seal and replaced it with a seal with Jewish symbols, the palm and the harp.
During the excavations, the skeleton of a mummified cloth-wrapped 6,000-year-old girl and a basket, probably the oldest in the world, dating back more than 10,000 years, were also found. The caves scattered across the Judean desert still conceal a lot of information about those who sought refuge in them, but the new discoveries will help to understand the process of shaping the text of the Bible and today's version.
Quest'anno la pandemia ha causato un danno gravissimo soprattutto ai cristiani.
This year the pandemic has caused very serious damage, especially to the Christians living in the pilgrimage areas. They have found themselves without work, and this is something that harms not only the individual, but families and communities. At the same time, Christians, being a minority, feel under pressure and sometimes even discriminated against in some way. At times we suffer, for example, from invasions of Christian property, and sometimes it becomes difficult to safeguard their very physical presence.
Presenza fisica. Il ruolo della Chiesa.
Our role, that of the Church in this reality, is first of all to support and encourage the Christian identity of Christians, because a Christian knows that being a Christian in the Holy Land is a vocation and a mission.
È una vocazione e una missione. In 2000 anni resistere a tantissimi cambiamenti, a tantissime situazioni difficili, a cambi di
In 2000 years, the Christians of the Holy Land have been able to withstand many changes, many difficult situations, power shifts, and so on. A strong Christian identity. And this is the task of the Church, and it is a pastoral task to support this identity through parishes, but also through schools and education. The Church in the Holy Land also has a social mission, which is linked to creating job opportunities and having house-building projects for young people who are looking to start a family.
Progetti di costruzione di case per soprattutto le giovani famiglie che cercano.
But the Church also has a social mission with regard to education, which is a crucial field. Schools play a particularly important role, and the Church also has a special task in welcoming those who, for various reasons, find themselves uprooted from their own country and community or come from abroad to work here. Precisely because the Church is the mother of all, she must try to take care of and accompany everyone.
Deve cercare di occuparsi e di accompagnare tutti quanti. Per noi la colletta di Terra Santa è qualcosa di essenziale.
For us, the Holy Land collection is something essential and vital, because it allows us to take care not only of the holy places, but also and above all, of the Christians of the Holy Land. It allows us to carry out all those works that we have spoken about so many times, from schools, pastoral activities in parishes, works of assistance to people in difficulty, as well as all other works in favor of our brothers and sisters who live in the most difficult situations, such as in Lebanon, and even more so in Syria, as well as the emergency situations which unfortunately are not uncommon and have been accentuated this year by the pandemic.
Desidero ringraziare tutti coloro che hanno.
I would like to thank all those who helped to organize the Pro Terra Santa collection, both the dioceses and the parishes, and all the networks that spread the message and the call for solidarity.
Il messaggio e l'invito alla solidarietà.